You, yes you, welcome back to my channel. Have you guys heard of the silent twins, the haunting case of June and Jennifer Gibbons? This is one of the creepiest cases that I've ever come across. Zombies, that's the best descriptor medical experts who met identical siblings June and Jennifer Gibbons could come up with to describe the young women. They didn't speak. They walked in a synchronized fashion. They were the silent twins, and they unsettled everyone who came into contact with them. Everyone, that is, except for Sunday Times investigative journalist Marjorie Wallace. Wallace befriended the twins in the 1980s and wrote about their shared life and its mysterious end in the 1986 biography, The Silent Twins. Born in 1963, June and Jennifer were moved by their Barbadian parents to a small town off the coast of Wales called Haverfordwest. Known for its tranquility, the town and the twins had one thing in common: quiet. Amazingly, the two had never spoken to anyone else their entire lives. Instead, they communicated with each other in a strange, bird-like language only they could understand. Haverfordwest was a predominantly white town, and the siblings were consistently bullied at school because of their race. Their continued resistance to speak to outsiders only resulted in more exclusion. Eventually, June and Jennifer withdrew from society entirely and turned to literature as an outlet for their pent-up aggressions. At age 14, the twins were separated in an attempt to encourage socialization. They responded by slipping into catatonic states. Doctors and family members reunited the siblings thereafter, and they spent the next few years holed up in the room, performing intricate plays for one another and writing extensively in their diaries. It was on the blank page that June and Jennifer revealed the darkness of their bond, exploring the joint need and hatred they felt toward one another. June wrote, "Nobody suffers the way I do, not with a sister. With a husband, yes. With a wife, yes. With a child, yes. But this sister of mine, a dark shadow robbing me of sunlight, is my one and only torment." Born 10 minutes apart, Jennifer viewed her older sibling as mightier in every way: looks, brains, wits. For her part, June sensed the envy, writing, "She wants us to be equal. There is a murderous gleam in her eye. Dear Lord, I am scared of her. She is not normal. Someone is driving her insane. It is me." A chilling excerpt from Jennifer's diary further illustrates their shared disdain and possibly sheds light on why the two took to inflicting bodily harm on one another. "We have become fatal enemies in each other's eyes. We feel the irritated deadly rays come out of their bodies, stinging each other's skin. I say to myself, can I get rid of my own shadow? Impossible or not possible? Without my shadow, would I die? Without my shadow, would I gain life, be free, or left to die? Without my shadow, which I identify with the face of misery, deception, murder." Such writing was a major creative outlet for June and Jennifer Gibbons. They even penned a few novels, though the books continued themes of mayhem and violence. June's Pepsi Cola addict is about a teen who's seduced by a school teacher and sent away to a reformatory where he fights off the advances of a homosexual guard. Jennifer's Discomania is a disturbing little tale about the insane violence that goes down at a disco. The books failed to make a serious splash in the literary world, so the Gibbons twins found another way to get noticed: criminal mischief. They got their thrills from petty theft, choking each other, and eventually burning buildings to the ground. It's the latter offense that landed them in court. A judge ruled their deviant behavior combined with their severe social disorders were grounds for confinement. He sent them to Broadmoor Hospital, the very same high-security mental facility where legendary British gangster Ronnie Cray lived out the remainder of his life. At Broadmoor, the doctors found Jane and Jennifer to be deeply disturbed, even dangerous. The two took turns eating, one indulging one day while the other starved, and though they were split up and housed in cells on opposite ends of the hospital, nurses often found them eerily frozen in the same distinct poses. This went on for 11 years, until doctors agreed to transfer the twins to Caswell Clinic, a lower security facility in Bridgend, Wales. Only one of the sisters would survive the relocation. Wallace Grimtham 1 were transferred to Caswell. Upon arrival, Jennifer appeared unresponsive. Doctors rushed her to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. Cause of death: acute myocarditis, or a sudden and lethal inflammation of the heart. Doctors found no evidence of poison in Jennifer's system. According to June, Jennifer simply placed her head on her twin sibling's shoulder. She then took her last breath and said, "At long last, we're out." After Jennifer's death in 1993, June went on to live a so-called normal life. She sat down for a revealing interview with the New Yorker's Hilton Isles, stating that all she wanted now was to get married and have children with a Rasta man like Bob Marley. As for her sister Jennifer, she's buried under a headstone engraved with a poem written by June. It reads, "We once were two. We two made one. We no more two. Through life be one. Rest in peace." A child without a soul. She opened the door, stepped into the hall, and screamed. Abner leaped to join her. There was blood spreading from Jasper's room. "I'll handle it," he said, staring her back into the bedroom. She went without protest. He looked into Jasper's room. The boy was sprawled across his bed, bathed in blood. A pool of it was chilling on the floor, extending to the doorway. The boy's throat had been slit. Abner leaped into the small figure. The blood was still spilling out. He caught a fold of the sheet in his hand and clapped it into Jasper's throat. He felt a faint pulse. Had he stopped it in time? "Zelda," he called, "call an ambulance. He's alive but fading." Then he held on, holding the boy's remaining blood inside while waiting. Zelda got on the phone, and soon the ambulance arrived. Abner got out of the way and let Zelda handle it. She was competent now that there was something positive to do. If the boy had been dead, it would have been another matter. Numbed, Abner walked to Olive's room. She was just finishing a candy bar. There was a spot of blood on her nightie. He kept his voice level. "Where did you get that bar, Olive?" "From Jasper," she answered matter-of-factly, licking her fingers. "Did he give it to you?" "No." "How did you get it from him?" "I snuck behind him and cut his throat and took it." "Olive, you shouldn't do that." She continued licking her fingers, ignoring him. And of course, it was a stupid thing to say. The word "should" had no meaning for her, only "can." Jasper had something she wanted and wouldn't give it to her, so she had taken it by almost killing him. He closed the door and walked back to the bedroom. Zelda was standing where he had left her, facing away as the medic continued to stabilize the boy. "That sound," she said. What could he tell her? "Maybe you better lie down. I'll call the police." "They've already done that. I'll go to the hospital with Jasper. I just want to know." There was no way out. She tried to kill him. She nodded. Why? She wanted his candy bar. She shuddered. Tell them it was an accident. Because even after this, couldn't stand to do what they had to do. He knew better, but couldn't have her freaking out right now. Okay. They took Jasper away, and Zelda went with them. Abner waited. If they had gotten over there and they heard the sound, they would have been in time. He suspected not. The child had snuck up behind her older brother with a knife while he was preoccupied with a video game and sliced his throat. Had she even asked for the candy bar? Probably not, as she knew he wouldn't share. The sound might have been him collapsing on the bed or her departing the room with the candy bar. They should have locked her in a room until they could watch her. They had been caught short by that lapse. The police surveyed the scene. They found the knife where it lay under a sheet. It would have been all his fingerprints on it. They were playing, Abner said. We didn't realize the knife was real. It was a horrible accident. The man nodded. He spoke into his radio. Soap bath. Come, clean it up. So they knew about soap baths. How was it that the news had never become public? But Abner knew the answer. To avoid panic. They were keeping it quiet because the problem had no ready solution. The man turned to Abner. Keep it locked up. 8 people who allegedly sold their souls to the devil. Be careful what you wish for. These men and women allegedly signed contracts with Satan to get what they wanted. The deals may have paid off in the short term, but the eternal return was far from positive. situation, provided the cleric renounced Christ and the Virgin Mary in a contract spelled out in his own blood. Theophilus accepted the demands, signed up on the pact, and assented to the title originally offered him. As the years went by, however, doubt crept in. Theophilus begged forgiveness from the Virgin Mary. He fasted for 40 days, after which time the Virgin reportedly appeared and rebuked him. Theophilus pleaded for mercy, and she left with a promise that she would talk to God on his behalf. After Theophilus fasted for another 30 days, the Virgin Mary returned with a message that God had pardoned him. 3 days later, however, Theophilus awoke to find the bloody contract placed upon his chest. Satan refused to relinquish his hold on the cleric's soul. A terrified Theophilus sought counsel from another bishop, who burned the contract and freed him from the infernal pact. Overwhelmed with joy, Theophilus died on the spot, relieved to be free. Robert Johnson was an American blues musician from the early 20th century who, as legend has it, acquired his musical prowess from a midnight deal with the devil. Born in 1911, Johnson grew up along the Mississippi Delta. As a young man, he yearned for musical greatness, and one night he took his guitar to the crossroads in hopes of conjuring dark forces. The devil appeared and took Johnson's guitar. He played a few songs and then handed it back, granting the young musician complete mastery of the instrument. The story thus explained Johnson's extraordinary skill. It also led to rumors that Johnson's drooping eye spoke of an infernal connection, and that he turned away from his audience while performing to hide the presence of evil. Johnson did little to discourage such tales. If anything, he fanned the flames with lyrics such as, "Early this morning when you knocked on my door, and I said, 'Hello, Satan, I believe it's time to go.'" In 1938, Johnson died under mysterious circumstances at the age of 27. Some say he succumbed to syphilis, others poisoning, whereas others contend it was the devil himself collecting his due. Nearly 150 years before Johnson's Midnight Pact, another famous musician was accused of bargaining with the devil in exchange for musical greatness. Niccolo Paganini, born in 1782, was an Italian violinist, guitarist, and composer known for his complex pieces and uncanny musicianship. The virtuoso began performing publicly at the age of 12, only to collapse under the pressure just 4 years later. He returned to the music scene at age 22, performing complex arrangements of his own devising. Several of the compositions were so demanding that Paganini was the only person alive who could properly play them. As word of his talent spread, so too did the armor that his abilities were the result of an unholy pact. Some even said they saw Satan on stage with Paganini assisting the violinist during concerts. Such claims were so widespread, in fact, that Paganini was denied final rites and a proper burial upon his death. It took 36 years after his passing before his body was finally laid to rest in a cemetery in Parma, Italy, a great distance from his home in Genoa. Giuseppe Tartini is another Italian violinist said to have struck a deal with the devil. So the legend goes, a dark figure visited Tartini in a dream one night in 1713. It was the devil offering his services in exchange for the musician's soul. Tartini agreed to the pact, after which the devil scooped up his violin and played the most beautiful song. Upon waking, Tartini grabbed his instrument and desperately tried to recreate the song. The result was the Devil's Trill Sonata, which remains one of the most difficult pieces of violin music ever written. Observers who witnessed Tartini play the piece were convinced he must have had otherworldly assistance to be able to perform it so perfectly. Tartini, however, was never satisfied with the piece. He remained that it could not hold a candle to the original tune played by the sinister figure from his dream. Of the souls on this list, Grandier is unique in that his alleged contract with the devil actually exists. Born in 1590, Grandier was a French Catholic priest known for being sexually promiscuous with more than a few nuns. He was also an outspoken critic of the church's stance on celibacy. At some point, several of Grandier's former bedmates accused the priest of witchcraft, claiming he employed dark magic to lead them into temptation. A trial commenced, though it resulted in an acquittal. France's chief minister, Cardinal Richelieu, was no fan of Grandier. promised Grandier the love of women, the flower of virtues, the respect of monarchs, honors, lusts, and powers, in exchange for the priest's allegiance. It's unclear if Grandier was forced to sign the document under duress, or if it was completely forged by those angling for his demise. In either case, Grandier was found guilty of fraternizing with Satan and sentenced to death. He was burned at the stake in 1634. Jonathan Moulton, born in 1726, was a famous soldier of colonial America, serving in King George's War as well as the French and Indian War. He became one of New England's wealthiest men after his service, which gave way to rumors that the man was in cahoots with the devil. Rumors swirled that General Moulton had struck a financial deal with Satan in exchange for eternal devotion and redemption of his soul. The devil would visit Moulton's home every month and fill his boot with gold. Despite such a handsome sum, General Moulton grew greedy. He cut a hole in the floor above his basement, over which he placed his boot with the freshly punched hole in the boot seal. Moulton may have thought himself quite clever, but one should never try to outfox the devil. Upon realizing the scheme, the devil burned down Moulton's house along with the gold coins. Antoine Rose, the first female of this list, was a woman from the 15th century who confessed under torture to regularly meet with the devil. Today she's credited with our modern-day image of a witch riding a broomstick. Rose, who came to be known as the Witch of Savoy, France, claimed that she had been destitute and in dire need of money, seeking help from her neighbor. Rose was led to a group of people who convinced her to ask the devil for help. The devil appeared and agreed to assist the struggling woman, so long as she rejected God and worshipped him instead. The devil also gave her a stick, a foot, and a half in length, and a small pot of ointment. She was to smear a bit of the ointment on the stick, place the stick between her legs, and say, "Go in the name of the devil, go." In her confession, Rose described some of the tributes the worshippers paid to the devil, including dancing and feasting and kissing the devil's hindquarters when he appeared in the physical form of a large black dog. Rose also stated that the devil had a low, raspy voice in human form, and she was terrified of him the first time they met. Born in 1651 or 52, Johann Christoph Hasemann was a painter who allegedly sold his soul to the devil after the death of his parent in exchange for relief from poverty and depression. Hasemann agreed to be the earthly son of the devil for 9 years. Afterward, Hasemann's body and soul would pass into the devil's hands. Hasemann claimed that he signed 2 documents confirming the pact, one penned in ink and the other in his own blood. As the due date approached, the painter grew worried. In 1677, he sought help from a Catholic priest who performed an exorcism on the young man. The ritual soothed Hasemann's troubled mind. He had a vision in which he successfully retrieved the pact penned in blood. Soon thereafter, Hasemann sought to annul the ink-written contract. He secured a second exorcism in 1678, which succeeded